There is something that's called la fofole. Supposedly, these are children that died through some horrific accident to where they're demon-like children, and they appear in the shape of lights that try to get you to follow them so you'll be lost forever in the swamps.
But yeah, when you hear like scraping claws underneath the bed and it moves and you can, I was so terrified, dude. I pulled the blanket over my head. I could hear whatever it was breathing outside the sheet.
When I was a little gaffer there, we got into a car accident, hit a moose. My mom ended up under the steering wheel of the car, and she had a big hand-shaped bruise on her shoulder. It was like somebody pushed her underneath the steering wheel. My mom should have gotten decapitated. The weird part was we hit a moose, and we had a moose hanging from the rearview mirror.
The only other thing that I could think of would be a bear, but there's no bears in that area either. It's just not the right habitat for them. And when you see a bear's going to move. It's going to take off for the most part. And this thing just sat there and did nothing.
This material world that you're told is bound by science and everything else, obviously science and physics are very important. There is so much more out there that is left to study, that is left to learn about.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Investigation Cryptoparalogy. Sit back, get relaxed, and crack open your favorite cold beverage as we dive deep into the abyss of what we were told couldn't possibly exist. Tonight on Investigation Cryptoparalogy, we're going to be talking to Matt. Matt is originally from, I think it was around the Preston area of Arizona. And he had, a couple of different encounters with him and with, just by himself, and with him and the girl that he was with at the point in time, or him and his sister. But we're going to turn it over to Matt and see what Matt has to say about this.
So I've had quite a few encounters out there in Arizona, and not just in one area, but pretty much the whole northern half of Arizona has actually got a lot more activity than what people would expect. You just got to know the right area to go to, and you can find areas that they're in pretty easy. There was quite a few encounters that I had up in there. Which one would you like me to speak about?
I'd say start with the one that, the one that was watching you and your sister.
That was when I was out camping with it was actually my ex that I was with. And so it was an area that we've been to before, and it was a really nice area, but it was out in the desert, but it sat down kind of in a ravine where a creek was running. And we've been going to this area for years, ever since we were kids. And I took my ex-girlfriend at the time, or my girlfriend at the time, down there, and we set up camp. And we're ways out there. We're 3 hours away from any town. We're out in the middle of nowhere. And we come across a really nice little patch of trees, and the creek's running. And we set up camp and go about our business for the day. We go out hiking, and nothing really happens the first couple days. And then the last day that we were there, or the day before we left, there was something up on the hill that was watching us in our camp. And I don't know how long it was there, but I had noticed a dark figure that was on the side of the hill. and I kept catching my eye every time I would look away from it. Anytime that I would look away from it, it was like it would move a little bit, and my eyes would go back to where it was. And every time that I look at it, it would stop moving. And so I'm watching it for a few minutes, and it's not really doing anything. So I go about, I think I was making food at the time, and it kept catching my eye. And so I keep looking at it, and I keep thinking to myself, okay, there's got to be something going on with that spot, with this thing that's on the side of the hill. Because we were there for a couple days before this, and I hadn't noticed it. And it was bugging me because it was pretty noticeable now. And we don't have large animals in that area other than deer, and they're like a grayish color, they're mule deer. And this was a dark, really dark brown, almost black. And it was standing out pretty good, but it was kind of next to a small tree. And so I keep watching it, and it's still not moving. And my bright idea was to take my gun that I had, and I had fired a round off, not at it, but close to it, just to see if it would move. And it didn't move, it stayed put. There was no noise, it didn't flinch, it didn't do anything. And so I'm thinking, okay, it's just, I'm just imagining whatever's there is just freaking me out when it shouldn't. And so I go about what we're doing and everything. And again, it keeps catching my eye. And I'm like, okay, this isn't normal for me just to keep looking at this one spot. And so at this point, I was kind of over it. And I took out my gun again, and I unloaded the entire, I think it was a 12 round clip. It was either 11 or a 12. And I unloaded the whole clip. And again, it didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't make any noise. And at this point, it's getting dark, and I'm starting to not be able to see it anymore because it's getting too dark. And so we go about our business again, and we get ready for bed. We get inside the tent, we're sleeping. And at this point, it's a couple of hours into the night, maybe later, 3-4 hours. And I had heard what sounded like maybe like an acorn had fallen off a tree and hit the side of the tent. But there weren't any acorn trees around where we were camping. And I heard it again. It hit the tent. It was like it hit the tent and then rolled down. And then another one. And then another one and another one. And I kept hearing it for a little while, and then it just stopped. And we could hear something down by the creek. The creek was about maybe 20 feet, 25, 30 feet down behind the tent. And we kept hearing the rocks along the creek bed shuffling, like something was walking on it, but they're intentionally trying to be quiet, but it's hard to be quiet on a bunch of rocks like that. And so we could hear it, and it would take a step, and then a little bit later it would take another step, and then another step, and whatever it was, you could definitely tell it was on 2 feet, because it was a step, 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 and it was like a person was walking around out there, but they were intentionally trying to be quiet. And we started getting a little uneasy, and so we started stirring around the tent, and we could hear it get a little faster, and it started to fade out, and eventually we couldn't hear it anymore, and we kind of figured, okay, it's gone, it's not around no more. And I didn't really sleep for the rest of the night. Like, I was kind of tossing and turning throughout the night, and we didn't hear anything else. But the next morning, when we got up and I was taking the tent down, I had noticed there was used shell casings, ammo casings, right by the tent. And I knew for a fact that those weren't there the night before. And so I picked one of them up, and it's the same caliber that I was using. It was 40 Smith & Wesson. And there was 12 of them. And I'm like, okay, this is a little weird, because they weren't there the night before. And so I go back over to where I had emptied my clip the day before, and it was about 30 feet away from the tent. And all of the shell casing that were there were no longer there. So, and then I looked up on the side of the hill, and whatever was there the night before was gone. There was no dark brown figure, there was no black figure, there was no dark spot whatsoever on the side of the hill. It was gone. And then I think whatever it was came down, and it picked up the shell casings that I used and was throwing them at the tent. I don't know what the purpose was. It was like, maybe you shoot at me, I throw it back at you, kind of a situation. I don't know for sure, but it just seemed odd. And I had taken a couple of pictures of whatever was there up on the hill the day before, and I took a picture the morning after, and it wasn't there. It wasn't there in the picture. It was gone. And I actually sent those pictures to you, and you said that it looked like it had breasts.
Yeah, I remember that now.
And it just kind of, when you said that, it made it all seem like it all came together. Like, it was just, and after that, it was an eerie feeling to know that it was there for a few hours.
You're starting to cut out again.
Is that better? And to know it was there for a couple of hours just watching this. I don't know what the purpose was. I don't know what it wanted. Maybe it was just curious. But it was just weird.
So what do you think it was?
Well, I know the area pretty well. And I can tell you where all the roads go, what the animals are out there. I've seen large groups of javelina out there. There's the occasional deer, but they're not very common out there. There's like a really small population out there. They don't do too well out there anymore. And the biggest animal that I could think of would be the deer. And the color was off for it to be a deer. And so then the only other thing that I could think of would be a bear, but there's no bears in that area either. It's just not the right habitat for them. And when you shoot at a bear's going to move. It's going to take off for the most part. And this thing just sat there and did nothing. And
Wow.
it wasn't even phased by the gun. It with most animals, you take a shot at it, it reacts. This thing did not. It was like nothing was happening. I don't know if it was death, but it just sat there.
This is almost like one of those memes on Facebook you see all the time. Tell me you've seen a Sasquatch without telling me you've seen a Sasquatch.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I can think of that it was, because that's the only thing that makes sense. I know to people out there who don't believe in it, it doesn't make sense to them, but for someone that has encountered them before, there is no other animal that it could have been, because everything else is going to leave. But
yeah,
it's
I'm not bringing up anything in my mind that you could fire a weapon at and it just stand there. I mean, even man, say they're in the military and they're in a firefight, they're not going to just stand there and let the enemy shoot at them. They're going to move. And animals do the same thing. They go into self-preservation mode. So it's not even a fight or flight. It's okay, we have got to not stay here.
Yeah. It was just eerie, and it kind of was unsettling a little bit. And now that's not the only encounter, or that's not the only activity that I had there. I don't know how much time you have, but I could go into detail
We're not like most podcasts, Matt. We don't have time constraints.
I can go into the next incident that I had at that same location. And this time, fast forward 2 years. When I had that first encounter with my ex-girlfriend, it was in 2015 when I had that one. Or no, sorry, 2016. And then in 2017, I took another girlfriend that I was with at the time down there, and same spot. And it was probably a stupid idea to go to the same spot, but we went to this. I took her to the same spot, and again, nothing was happening. We were there for 3 nights, or 2 nights, 3 days, and nothing was happening until that last night. And it got dark, and it had started to rain a little bit, and we heard an owl, or what sounded like an owl, but it was a really large owl, and it was really, really close to the tent, like really close. And it just made one hoot that they do. I can't mimic it worth crap, so I'm not even going to attempt it. It made a hoot, and a second later, there was another one that was a little bit further away. And then maybe a second after that one, there was another one. There was another owl, but only this time, this owl, it was a different owl sound that was even further away. And then the one that was close to the tent had made its sound one more time. And then the ones out from the distance called back. And again, we heard the exact same thing, what I had heard the first time down by the creek, where you'd hear it walk on the rocks. And it was the same exact sound. And at this point, I'm getting nervous, because it's within 20 feet of the tent. It's close. And my girlfriend's freaking out. She's getting nervous. And we could tell that it hurt us moving around the tent, because when it was walking, it had stopped when we started moving around, and it just stopped. And we couldn't hear the rocks anymore. And then the ones off in the distance had made a call. And then the one that was really close just takes off. Like it ran. Like you could hear the footsteps. It was a loud thud, 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 and then just faded away. But when this thing took a step, you could feel it. I don't know of any owls that are that large too, where you can feel the footsteps. And it was just a creepy feeling. And then after that, I was unnerved. I didn't feel safe in that area, and I didn't want anything else to happen. So we had packed up and we left that night. We didn't stay until morning. We just packed up and left. And it's one of the only times that I had left the forest.
So it legitimately scared you out of the forest.
Yeah, only because of that first encounter that I had there. And it was like it came back. And I didn't know if it would recognize me, if it would get pissed off because we were there again. And when we heard that first one that was really close to the tent, we didn't hear it come up. We didn't hear it walk up, but we heard it leave. So
that's odd.
It's either, the only thing that I can think of is it either snuck up from a different location other than the creek bed, or it had came up close to the camp and it was sitting somewhere that I couldn't see, because where the tent was, it was open a little bit, and then about 20-25 feet down behind the tent, not along where the creek bed was, but kind of off to the right backside of the tent, there was a area that was full of undergrowth that had brush and had small trees, and you couldn't really see into it a whole bunch. And if there was something in there, you wouldn't have been able to really see it unless it got up and started moving around. And I don't know if it was sitting there or where it came from, but it was there. It could have been there before we went to bed. And that just, that threw me through a loop. I didn't know how to handle that.
Well, have you had any encounters or anything? When I say lately, I don't mean, within the last couple of days or anything, but since then?
In a different area, yes, not at that location, because we didn't really go back to that location after that. We had moved away to out of town, and we went up towards Las Vegas and didn't really do anything up there. But there was a time that I came down to go camping out by a lake up in the Mogollon Rim area. I don't really want to say the lake because it's a really it's not a popular lake, and everybody that it lives in Arizona is going to know the lake once you say it. But the reason why I don't want to say the name is because there's a lot of activity that goes on up there, and I don't want people going up there looking for them, causing trouble.
Oh, no, that's fine.
Yeah, I just don't want to stir up the area.
No, you don't have to disclose the names of any areas if you don't want to.
But I just want to keep that area safe for people's sake, their sake, everybody else's sake. Because the ones that are there, they're kind of violent and they're not really nice. That's where my sister had her encounter, and she had a pretty terrifying encounter. To where if you start even talking about it or whatever, she gets kind of upset. And so we went up there, we went camping, or I went camping, and she came up on the last day that I was there. And so we went camping up here. Right. Again, I went camping up there, and my sister came up the last day that we were there. And we went to the lake. We put our kayaks in the water, and we're kayaking around. And we went into this kind of cove of the lake, and we got out of the kayaks, and it was kind of muddy up on the bank. And I had noticed that there was this weird, like, I guess fish. It wasn't really a trap because it wasn't an actual trap, but it was a little corral, I guess, in the water of sticks that were pushed down into the mud. And it made like a U shape in the water. And I was looking at that, trying to figure out what that was about. And I'm looking around on the bank, and I had noticed that there was a footprint. And it was a bare footprint, but it was rather small. It was only about maybe 5-6 inches. But it was really deep for how small it was. So I didn't have any shoes on, and so I had a bare foot, and I weighed about 150 pounds, and I had tried to make a footprint next to it. And I wasn't even making a dent in the mud. Like, it was really dense, compact mud, but it was mud and it was wet. And when you would step on it, the water would gush out and come up with your toes and everything like that. But whatever had made this footprint had left a deep impression. And I think I sent you a picture of the footprint. And to the left of the footprint, I had tried to create my footprint and I couldn't do it. Like, you couldn't even tell that I tried. But it was at least a good quarter of an inch to a half inch into the mud. But it was a really small footprint. So whatever it was heavy, even though it was small. And it just struck me odd. It was a perfect barefoot footprint in the mud, but a really deep one. And I couldn't figure out. I figured it out later, but I couldn't recreate it, even though I was 150 pounds, and I couldn't even make a dent in the mud. Like, it wasn't even putting any kind of indentation whatsoever. And so then I took a picture of it, and we get back in the kayaks. My sister's getting a little nervous because she's kind of having flashbacks of what happened with her. And so we get in the kayaks and we go back on to the other side of the lake where all the people are at. And we're talking about it and everything like that. And she's all like, I think that was a baby Sasquatch print, or a young Sasquatch that was over there. And that's the only thing that I can think of that would be heavy enough to make that kind of a footprint, but still be small. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the only thing that I can think of. Unless there's like a 400-pound midget out there, that's the only thing I can think of.
Well,
And
yeah, I don't really know of anything either. So, yeah, there's that. I have nothing.
yeah, it was. And it's a pretty well-known area to have sightings and encounters. There was one spot up there that you can go to, and almost every time that you go to that location, something's going to happen, but it's usually not good. I know there was one lady that had her RV parked up there, and she had a log thrown like a javelin into the side passenger window of the RV. I mean, I don't know of a bear that's gonna throw a log into a window.
Well, get hit with a log being thrown like a javelin, that'll fairly efficiently rearrange your body.
The log had it, something threw it at the passenger window of the RV, and it went through the glass of the RV.
That's just something I do not want to experience.
No. And the weird thing is that area, it doesn't seem like that they give you a lot of warning. They go from curious to pissed off. Almost at a flip is a switch. And one of the things that I had noticed about the area also is when you go to this lake, there's the bulletin board that's up there where all like the restrooms are and everything like that. There's articles up there. There's a map up there saying that you are here. And usually every time that we go up there, there is about 2 or 3 missing dog posters on the board. And it's just an odd, eerie place to go to. Like, it's a really pretty place to go visit, but I don't think I would camp there again. Not unless it was in a large group of people.
Oh, come on. You don't want to hug Sasquatch? Like the people constantly try to do to the buffalo in Yellowstone?
Yeah, it was just it's a nice place, but yeah, no, I'm good. I'll visit, but I'm not going to camp there.
So no camping out for weeks at a time, hunting for weeks at a time by yourself with no other weapons on you but a knife, stuff like that. None of that.
Not in that area. I'll do it in another area, but not that area.
It's possible. I'm not from that area, so I can't speak on that
area. It's a really pretty area. I mean, it's forested, hills, mountains, lakes, rivers. It's probably one of the prettiest places of Arizona, but it's not a safe place at night. During the day, you're okay, but at nighttime, no.
Alrighty then. So if you happen to go back out anywhere and you have any other experiences or encounters, be sure to let me know, right?
Oh, yeah.
Find us on the web at www.investigation-cryptoparalogy. That's CRYPTOPARAOLOGY.com. On Facebook at www.facebook.com/investigation-crypto. Listen to us on any major podcast players, including Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and of course Spotify. We continue to spread to more podcast players each day. You may contact us by using the contact page on the website, or by sending a direct message to our Facebook page, or by emailing us directly at investigationcryptoparalogy@gmail.com. That is investigation, CRYPTOPARAOLOGY@gmail.com. Also, I would like to add this. If you're feeling down on yourself, or like you don't matter, or there's no hope left, we're here for you. You can contact us through our Facebook page or by emailing us at investigationcryptoparalogy@gmail.com. We are happy to listen and possibly help you find a better tomorrow. If you don't want to talk to us, you can contact the Suicide Hotline of the United States. They have a crisis text line if you verbally speaking to someone is not your thing. Text HOME, all capital letters, HOME, to 741741. If you do want to verbally speak to someone, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 1-800-273-8255. And if you are a veteran, you can also call 1-800-273-8255 and then press 1. Well, folks, that's all the time we have for tonight. I sincerely hope you will join us again next time for another spine-tingling, hair-raising experience from the depths of the abyss. If you would like to contact me about an experience you have had or to get on the show, email me at investigationcryptoparalogy@gmail.com. That's investigation, CRYPTOPARAOLOGY@gmail.com.
'Cause my mom